ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the City Council Committee meetings. Today is the 7th of December. We have several committees this afternoon. The first is Lake Whatcom Reservoir and Natural Resources, and it's chaired by Dan Hamill.
Thank you, Gene. Joining me today are Council Members Vargas and Weiss, and we have one item before us this afternoon for consideration, and that is an interlocal agreement between the City of Bellingham and Western Washington University for the Lake Whatcom Monitoring Project. This is a proposed continuation of long-term data tracking for temperature, pH, dissolved oxygen, turbidity, and other items that are related to the lake's health. And Ted Carlson's here to walk us through it.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Ted Carlson, Public Works Department. As you are aware, the city's had a long relationship with Western Washington University as it relates to monitoring Lake Whatcom, specifically with the Institute for Watershed Studies, led by Dr. Robin Matthews. The interlocal agreement before the council today is for 3 years, just over $900,000 for the 3-year period, so a little bit over $300,000 a year averaged out. And it really does continue, as Councilmember Hamill said, our baseline data collection for the lake. It is, however, does cover 4 major tasks, I would say, in the interlocal agreement. The primary one is continuation of the water quality monitoring for Lake Whatcom, but also looking at the water quality of the tributaries flowing into Lake Whatcom, as well as the water quality of Whatcom Creek as it exits the lake. Also looking at the impact of storm runoff into Lake Whatcom, so monitoring storm events and looking at the amount of phosphorus, for example, coming into Lake Whatcom through storm events, through our tributaries, as well as the suspended solids. And the fourth item is really spending a little bit more time looking at Austin and Smith Creek as it relates to storm events and hydrologic modeling of those 2 streams in particular. This contract is paid for by the water utility, so comes out of the water rates. And as I said, we've been working very, very closely with Western on this program for many, many years, I think going back into the 80s. The project manager for the city is Peg Wendling. She's our lab supervisor. I think many of you have met her in the past. And she, along with a team of city staff made up of folks like Claire Fogelsong and Bill Riley and others in the lab and other water quality specialists meet with Western regularly to go over the results of the modeling and monitoring, I should say, and really looking at the work program. So we recommend continuing this relationship. Obviously, the commitment is really for, although it's a 3-year agreement, the commitment is for the 2016 budget because that's already been approved by council and the money for this agreement is in the budget. Years 17 and 18 will be dependent on council approval of the 17-18 biennial budget. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Committee members.
I don't have a question, just comment how important it is for us to gather this data and have baseline and know where we're at. So I definitely encourage us to support this.
I have a few questions. Councilmember Weiss.
I'll just put it on the floor to move approval of the interlocal.
Okay, great. I have some questions. There's a 12% difference in 2016 to 2017 as the allocation is described here in our packet. Why is there a difference in that?
Yeah, some of the, and there's some additional information in the exhibits, and some of that has to do with the frequency of the data collection and really the scope of work that's been negotiated. They've been working on this, they being the city team in Western, since about June, kind of identifying how this will play out over the 3 years. So it does fluctuate between 16 and 18, averaging around 300,000, but generally it's just the amount of effort that they've identified for those years. I could certainly have Peg come and answer more detailed questions, but it's just an agreed upon scope that Dr. Matthews, her team, and the city's team felt gave us the data we needed.
Is the $300,000 a year, roughly speaking, allocation sort of generally accepted standard in terms of this type of work?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when we look at the rates, I mean, I think it's a very good deal for the city for the data that we get. You know, working with the university, not only do they have the history, but I think the rate and what we pay works well for the city for the amount of effort that we get from Western. And going through the scope of work and the frequency of the data collection, we believe it's, you know, it makes a lot of sense. It matches up well with the cost.
Okay, great. Other questions? Okay, motion's been made. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. That is our one and only item today.
Okay, thank you, Dan. We will now take a break, and then we'll go to finance and personnel.